Welcome! If you're a woman who has a sense that there's more out there for you, you're in the right place. I'm Whitney Baker, host of the Electric Ideas podcast. Somewhere along the line of work and kids, life carried on, but I lost track of my truth. I'm on a reflective journey, and that's what this podcast is all about. Each week, I interview a woman who is lighting her own path and offering others hope. Before our conversation ends, we'll share a reflective question for you to explore. Sometimes all we need is a jolt, a fresh idea, an aha moment that connects us to a sense of possibility. This, my friends, is what I call an electric idea. Welcome back to Electric Ideas. Today's guest is Stephanie Seferian. Stephanie is host of the Sustainable Minimalists podcast and also author of the nonfiction book, Sustainable Minimalism. In this conversation about sustainable minimalism, Stephanie really calls us to think more critically about our relationship with stuff and how it potentially can be a barrier for thinking clearly or living in the ways we want to live. I know you're going to learn a lot and leave feeling inspired and also have some practical takeaways that you're going to want to jump on with this conversation. So let's get into it. Hi, Stephanie. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Whitney. Thanks for having me.
I want to start by sharing something you've said that really struck me. You said modern luxury is the ability to think clearly. And that hit a chord. Can you tell us a little bit about how you've reached that conclusion?
Well, I think most of us listening right now know that there's an awful lot of distractions in modern life. Everywhere you look, there's something or someone vying for our attention. We also have these really powerful little computers in our pockets at all times that ping and ding and ask things from us, demand things from us. And so I do believe that the ability to just have space in our lives to think clearly, to let our minds wander, to take deep breaths, that is luxury in a world that is, constantly vying for every little piece of us.
Definitely. And I know that your focus is on sustainable minimalism. And I want to unpack what that means a little bit because, especially with this technology that you're mentioning, there's a lot of imagery that focuses on aesthetics. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's focusing a lot of the conversation less on why we consume or what happens to the things that we discard. And I'm wondering, in this journey that you've been on for a while, what were some of the deeper questions you started asking yourself about your relationship with stuff?
Well, I guess I'll start by saying that pre-children, I didn't think about stuff at all. I didn't think about consumption or environmental issues. I was just your average consumer. I bought what was marketed to me if I felt like I wanted it or if my finances allowed. I went to the mall most weekends, some weekends, I should say, probably not most, but I had never taken a critical look at my consumption habits until I became a mother. And, motherhood is a great period of transition. But for me, it was also a period of major stress. I had quit my job. I was a stay-at-home mom with this infant who I didn't know how to take care of. And the infant came with an awful lot of stuff. My loving friends and family bought and bought and bought for this new child, this first grandchild. And my baby daughter had the best wardrobe, all the baby toys, all the educational toys for this newborn who could barely keep her eyes open for more than 5 minutes. Like, it was so silly. So in this moment of stress and overwhelm, the free time that I had, which was very little, was spent organizing the baby clothes, ironing the frilly dresses, finding places in our 850 square foot apartment to put all the baby Einstein toys. And I just thought to myself, how silly. Like, how silly. My mental load it's non-existent. Like, the mental load is out of the cup and overflowing. And so why not take a critical look at the stuff? It seemed to me that working smarter, not harder meant getting rid of all the excess that, first my daughter wasn't using, but then after I very easily decluttered her stuff, because let's be honest, it wasn't mine, I started looking at my own stuff. And I started thinking about, well, what is the environmental impact of this shirt? Where is it going to go after I wear it 2 times and then decide that it's not in style and not flattering anymore? And so it's been a journey for me to not only think about clutter on a personal level of, oh, what is this doing to me and my stress and anxiety levels? How is it impacting me from, or preventing me, let's say, from, being my happiest, most peaceful self? But also, what is this clutter doing on an environmental level? If we're all just buying what's marketed to us because we're told we need it, why are we taking all these resources? And is there a better way?
Yeah. I always invite people to view the things through the lens of curiosity and not shame. So I really appreciate that you shared that, pre-baby version of you. It's who knows why these messages hadn't reached you yet. But beyond just wanting to be a more conscious consumer, which we're going to definitely make time to talk about, tell us about in your book and what you found in terms of the hidden cost of having clutter.
Well, let's start at the beginning of when we're marketed to, right? We're marketed all these promises. Maybe this item will make us look younger or thinner or more beautiful, or maybe it'll give us time back or make our lives easier or take something off our to do list. Like there's always a promise associated in the marketing of a thing. And that promise usually hits on some emotional need. But what I found is that almost always the marketing never lives up to the hype. Instead of giving something back, for me, usually stuff takes something away. And those hidden costs of clutter are often number one, time. It takes a lot of ongoing effort, energy, and time to manage apartments or houses full of stuff, multiple houses full of stuff. Another hidden cost of clutter is, again, an increased mental load. This stuff, at least for me, weighed me down. I would find my weekends were spent, again, organizing, cleaning, putting away, thinking about the stuff, doing something with the stuff. My husband is helpful, but I am, like many women in, male female partnerships. Traditionally, women tend to be, even in the most equitable of partnerships, women still tend to be the ones that are in charge of the lion's share of the home. And that is the case in my house as well. And so the clutter really affected me more. It showed up in me being snippy and snappy with my husband or not being fully present with my now 2 daughters. I felt like I couldn't be fully invested in playing with them because I was thinking about and looking at all the piles of mess around that were distracting me. And then finally, the last hidden cost of clutter, of course, is our money. Many of us go to work at jobs to make money, to pay for not only, our bills, but also to pay for all the stuff. And so I found myself thinking about how, at least in my early days as someone moving towards a minimalist existence, like if I just hopped off the consumerist wheel once in a while, would that mean that I would have to work less? Would I actually get time back because I wouldn't have to be spending hours at a job to pay for my consumption habits?
Yeah, I definitely feel like, and increasingly, I just want to reflect that back to you. A lot of women, me included, I have a workspace outside of the home, but I also work from home a lot. And I think that's becoming increasingly common for many women who are moms and are trying to figure out that gray area of where and how can I make it all work. And I think that a lot of women experience kind of this resentfulness because they want a space where they get to live and play and that reflects them. And it's hard for women. I'll just share, like, my husband, like, he turns it off. He doesn't see it. Like, for me, it's hard for me to relax in a space if there's stuff all over. I want to say that I've transcended that through my mindfulness practices, but I got to keep it real. So I know many women, especially moms, are going to really relate to what you're saying and they crave less clutter. They want more peace, but they are stuck in this cycle of feeling like they're consuming and decluttering. And I'll be honest, I was reading your book as my daughter was like, I've outgrown all my clothes for last summer. And I like literally did not want to go shopping. I've had your like words in my ear, but I'm like, okay, we do need some new stuff. But it can just feel like a vicious cycle. So for moms that want to begin shifting out of this loop to a more conscious and sustainable way of living, where are some accessible ways we can begin?
That's a great question. And I would say that step one is just to really assess whether you need the new thing, the thing that, is being marketed to you. Obviously, in the example of your child, she may very likely need new clothes. Kids grow so fast, they are like weeds, my own included. But even then, I would ask yourself, well, if planetary issues are important to you, can you acquire clothes for your daughter by some other means? Buying new is usually, from an environmentalist perspective, the worst resort. So, do you have a friend with a child a year older or 2 years older than your child who is willing to give you a big fat bag of hand-me-downs? I will say that my 11-year-old is now getting a little bit pickier with fashion, so that's probably not an option for her these days, but it was from ages 2 to 10. So
Yeah.
for 8 years, there are so many families in my community who, again, have the bags of clothes. They don't know what to do with them. Sure, they could dump it, throw it into that dumpster, that textile recycling bin, or many parents would like to pass it along to an actual person with a face. And so sharing resources is one step in that direction of getting what you need, acquiring what you need without buying new.
Speaking of buying new, in your book, I thought it was interesting. And I don't know if everyone thinks of shopping as something that's addictive. I know we don't need to go all the way into, shopping addiction. I know that's a whole thing, but I know that there is a kind of a dopamine hit. It's kind of a cheap dopamine hit that happens when we purchase things. And in your book, you talk a little bit about how it's almost like becomes we need more and more of it and it fades and fades in effect. So it's a little bit of a tricky cycle. Can you speak into that a little bit?
Yeah, the whole purchasing dance, I like to call it, is often fueled by little hits of dopamine. So we see something we like, a little bit of dopamine. We feel, excited, happy. We feel the need to, act. Handing over our credit card, receiving the item back in its bag, like dopamine central. Same with online as well. We see something, we got to have it, we complete the transaction, and we feel good. But the problem with that is those dopamine hits that we get through the purchasing dance, they don't stick around. They very soon after recede to normal levels. And then we have this thing, this item. And so human nature is to repeat behaviors that give us the dopamine hit. So we're going to buy more, buy again, maybe buy two things next time, maybe go to three stores at the mall and buy three things at each store. And on an unconscious level, for many of us, it becomes less about whether we need these things and more about how can we sustain the dopamine hit. And over time, many people find that they need to purchase more and more to even just hit that same level of feeling good. And so I have found actually in my life, and this wasn't immediate, this didn't happen overnight, it's been years in the making, but I'd like to think that I have reset my dopamine levels, let's say, to baseline, in which, sure, when I do buy something, it feels really good, but I'm conscious of that. I'm also conscious of the fact that I can feel great from tidying up my space. I can get a dopamine hit from making myself a cup of coffee and sitting and looking out the window and enjoying it. I can feel great from reading my book, my library book on the couch. And so I think it's just, at least for me, as somebody who was not addicted to shopping, that's a big word. I do believe that's a thing. And for people listening who think that they may be addicted to shopping, I'm not sure that this tip would work for them. But for me, just noticing, other ways in which I can feel good without handing over my credit card, that was a really powerful ongoing moment of observation for me.
Hey y'all, it's Whitney Baker just popping in here for a moment. Summer break is either here or it's just around the corner for many of us moms. And I know that brings a mix of joy and excitement, but also maybe a sense of chaos. We want to be present, we want to have fun, but it's not like life just pauses for us. That's why I want to make sure you know about my $37 program called 5 Days to Less Stress, More Satisfaction. It's an intentionally short, easy to digest, self-guided program that helps you start your mornings with just a little bit of time dedicated to yourself. So you feel more grounded, more clear, and like you're consciously choosing to pour into yourself and better equipped to show up how you want during these summer days. Whether you're working inside or outside the home, summer usually includes lots of transitions. And I know as moms, we work hard to make sure that our kids are making memories and having all of these fun experiences. But there can be this feeling like we're putting so much effort into everybody else that we forget that we get to enjoy summer too. So this program is an invitation for you to pour into yourself. This is a guided meditation-based program, so it's also great for all of you guys who've heard all of the science and all of the insights about how beneficial meditating can be, but you're having trouble establishing a regular practice or you just don't know where to start. When you buy this program for just $37, you will have 5 lovingly crafted themed guided meditations that you can enjoy, along with journaling prompts to take your self-connection deeper, and a fun, actionable step that you can take each day to continue to show up for yourself. Once you buy 5 Days to Less Stress, More Satisfaction, these tools are yours to keep. If you're ready to feel self-supportive and self-loyal and show up for yourself this summer, 5 Days to Less Stress, More Satisfaction is a click away in the show notes, or you can connect with me on Instagram at @WhitneyWoman. You're welcome to message me there with any questions. Okay, back to the show. I think that's important, and I feel like it's common, if I really had to guess, that some women, especially moms who are just like exhausted at the end of the night and they're kind of spent and they are on their phones, that it would be easy when our reserves energetically are low to just be like, I deserve this new bright workout top, or, and I think that just from a intentional living perspective, something that I've been trying to do, which I have plenty to learn and to work on in this area, but is I'll just put something in my shopping bag. And then I'll just be like, okay, if I still am thinking about this or really need to come back to this at a time when I'm not tired, I'm not like having a bad day. It's just been a nice mindfulness practice where it's just like, okay, yeah, okay, I do want this. I need this. It just is a very small thing that's helped me feel like a slightly more mindful consumer.
That's a great tip. I would call that putting up a barrier to purchasing. So waiting 24 hours, right? Like
Yeah.
waiting to see if, oh, in the light of a new day, this item still has its allure. Another one would be if, online shopping is your thing, just unsave your credit card information. A lot of times for me, having to get up off my preferred space on the couch, walk all the way to where my purse was, extract my credit card, and then walk back, like, at the end of the night, that's too much effort. Forget it. It's not worth it. So that's just another barrier to purchasing. Another one, just off the top of my head, like get off the marketing email list. If your favorite store, if Lululemon is emailing you 3 times a week with their new must have items, like if you don't know about these new items, they're not going to niggle at you, right? So just make your inbox a little bit cleaner and unsubscribe.
Yeah. I also found interesting that I might butcher this name, but it's the Diderot Effect. And I'll be honest, I faced this myself, and it's kind of a frustrating dance. Like you said, we moved into a house 13 years ago, and we waited a decade to get some new furniture because when my kids were little, I was just like, I don't want anything to be precious. And we finally were ready. I was like, okay, I'm ready to have a new couch that's not disgusting. But it's been a total example of this effect that I want you to explain, because it's been like, oh, okay, well, we got the new pillows and now I'm like, we painted and it just opened up a huge can of worms of when does it stop? So I just wanted to have you share this concept a little bit so people can just be aware of it, if nothing else.
Yeah. So the Diderot Effect. It is named after, I believe he was a French writer. His last name is Diderot. And I believe he was from the 18th century. And one of his friends gifted him this fancy new robe. Like it was velvet, it was lush and plush, and it was just the best robe that ever crossed Diderot's path. And he loved the thing. And at first, things were great. He had this robe, but then very soon after, this fancy, luxurious robe kind of highlighted the drabness of his home. His writing desk was old and scratched. His chair wasn't all that comfortable. So why would you wear this amazing robe in this drab room? He felt the urge to update his room. So he bought a new chair, and then very soon after he bought a new desk. But then of course the paintings on the wall weren't up to the aesthetic of the new desk and the new chair. And so the Diderot effect is meant to explain the snowball effect of adding new things into a space. When we add new things into a space, it highlights the, dare I say, oldness or drabness of stuff we already have. So we want to continue to update. And I will say too, I have felt this plenty of times. I think I write about in the book about how, my house was built in the 1960s. When we moved in, we updated the powder room. So we did a whole facelift with it, which was lovely. But then this modern powder room doesn't go with the rest of my 1960s house. So I felt the urge to now do the kitchen, now, redo the floors everywhere. And so if we're not conscious, if we're not intentional, it can truly never end, right? And if it never ends, it certainly benefits the corporations we're giving money to, but it's not ultimately in our benefit. Because again, we're human beings. We're likely never going to be satisfied.
So when you do decide to buy something new, which I know that there's a lot of steps you take to try not to, but when you're like, okay, I've decided I do want to get like a new bed, for example, what are some of the questions that you, now that you're in this more evolved, I will say, space of consideration, what are the questions you ask yourself or what filters do you use?
So the first filter is, do I really need it? Let's get honest between needs and wants. Did the bed break? Like, do I actually need one? Or is it just, no longer my taste and style? If it's genuine, like I need a new bed, then I will ask myself, well, is usually somebody in my family, giving away a bed frame? My in-laws are slowly in the process of downsizing. My father, same thing. I'll just give an example. My kids' playroom was a playroom for a decade, and we decided as a family they no longer needed the playroom. They're 11 and 8. Do they need a playroom? Let's be real. So we needed to redo this room. I painted the walls. I got a rug, a beautiful rug from my in-laws, a beautiful couch, a beautiful bookshelf, a beautiful coffee table, all from my parents and my in-laws. I spent $60 on paint, and I'm super happy with the room because I no longer need to have new to be happy. New to me is just as good as new. But I know that a lot of people may not be there now or ever. And so, number one is, do I actually need to buy something? Then, if I do, I try my darndest, if the answer is yes, to support companies that are not just chasing the bottom line and are actually trying to do better. So maybe they have a robust sustainability plan. Maybe they are working across all aspects of the supply chain to reduce their footprint. Maybe they make a product that is durable and made to last instead of made to break, especially going back to the bed example. Like, is it made of real solid wood that's going to last me for the next 40 years of my life? Or is it made of particle board and it's going to be trashed in, I don't know, 10 years? So those are just some of the questions I asked myself. I can continue on if that's helpful.
I think that that's just a good set of reflection questions for women. I think that there's going to be a massive spectrum of people who are squarely in this space and already, making a lot of these considerations. And there's going to be some people that are in that space that you were before you had kids and are just curious and want to learn more without judgment, right? You don't know what you don't know. I know that you talk about your family de-emphasizing or decentralizing consumerism in general in your life. And I'm curious what underconsumption looks like for you and your family and why it actually is a source of joy and doesn't feel punishing.
So we live in a capitalist society in which shareholders and CEOs make money off of us spending money and giving it to them essentially. And once I realized bone deep, and my husband too, that us giving our money is not for our benefit, but for theirs, there is an immense joy in hopping off of that bandwagon and just saying, you know what? I'm not going to be a mindless consumer because mindless consumption doesn't benefit me. It benefits it benefits those with the deep pockets. I'll also say here too that buying less means that I am empowered to make more or create more or grow more or do things with my hands that these days we outsource. We pay somebody else to make our bread or to sew our clothes or grow our cucumbers, whatever it may be. So again, buying less means that I've had this amazing, incredible opportunity each and every day to teach myself something new, teach myself these new skills. I never knew how to sew. I could barely thread a needle. I'm happy to mend a pair of socks these days. I'm still not like making shirts or anything like that. I'll never be there, but, or even growing food. I never cared about that. And now I have a nice little garden on my deck every year. I mean, I could go on, but I do feel as though our hands can and should be used for more than typing and texting. We are meant to create. And when we buy less, we have the opportunity to create ourselves.
Yeah, I think that the underlying theme in what you're saying there is there's a certain freedom and spaciousness you found. And I think a lot of women crave that. And I think that also bleeds into our schedules of our family life and whatnot. I know we're coming up on time, but are there any important rituals in the same vein that have been welcomed by your family to kind of embrace this ethos as a family?
I guess I'll just say that nobody's complaining. Like, we spend an awful lot of time together. Money's not falling from our trees, but we also don't need it to because we're not spending it on stuff that we don't actually need. We actually save it and go on amazing experiences together. We're happy to, instead of going to the mall, playing a board game, I think that we have a lot more space in our lives to spend time together than we did when I was an unconscious consumer, let's say. And I will say too, it's working for us now, but the jury's still out on whether, my kids will continue to be on board. For Christmas last year, my 11-year-old wanted a Stanley Cup, the leaky lead-filled cup, and that really threw me for a loop. So I don't know what's in store as my daughters enter tween and teenhood, but I do hope that there's a foundation built, and we'll see. Have me back on in 5 years and we'll we'll
We'll
talk about it.
we'll reevaluate. Well, Stephanie, I know that lots of my listeners are going to feel inspired and have many things to think about. I always end my episodes with an opportunity for reflection. So, in this area of exploring breaking the cycle of overconsumption and hopefully reclaiming more space and peace in our homes and our lives, what's one question women could be asking themselves?
Do you have enough? If you look around at your life, have you historically had enough? And can you trust that the stuff you have, the abundances that you've earned and been given, like, is there joy to be found there? And I'll just say too, we didn't really touch on gratitude a lot today, but I think also that shifting our mindset. So it's a almost imperceptible shift, but it's so powerful. And that shift is from going from what we lack and what we need to what we've already got. I think that's really where the special sauce is. So the question, of course, would be, what are my abundances? Like, let's point them out.
I'm so glad you brought that up and we were able to reflect on that in closing. So thank you. I know that my community will want to find you and find your book and support you. So where can we look for you, Stephanie?
Yes, thank you for that. I am the host of the Sustainable Minimalists podcast. It's been around for, I think, like 7 years and counting. And on it, we talk about minimalism, decluttering, yes, but it's with a sustainability slant. Really proud of my show. And I'm also the author of the book by the same name, Sustainable Minimalism. I'm pretty active on Instagram at Sustainable Minimalists. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for your time. I'm so glad you joined me today. If you're looking for more, feel free to connect with me on Instagram at @WhitneyWoman. And if you enjoyed the show, I invite you to support me by leaving a review or sharing it with a friend. Hope you have an inspired day.